Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Subnet Show. I am your host, Gabriel Cardona, coming to you from San Francisco this week. And I am joined as always by my amazing co-host, the man with the most cats in crypto, Connor Daly. What is up, my friends?
Not very much. I have Ollie on my lap right here. He's not biting my face like last week, so this is kind of an improvement, I have to say.
Nice.
I had a lot of fun this week. I recently crossed the 10,000 follower threshold, which is a super huge deal for me. And in celebration, I finally wrote a Twitter thread introducing all of my cats in all of their glory. So, if you haven't checked that out, you absolutely need to. I included lots of pictures, and yeah, I had a lot of fun with that.
Got it. And yes, I have seen people tag you now on Twitter with like an emoji of 4x4 cats or something like that.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. That's good.
Gotta have a personal brand, you know.
You do. Yeah, you're staying true to the game. I appreciate that. On point.
Now I
On
just gotta
brand.
monetize these cats, you know. I need to sell
There you go.
with them.
Crypto kitties, man, you're already set up. You just gotta step through it. All right, so last week we had on the head of product at Ava Labs, which is Nick Musalam, and he was here to talk about the Core Wallet. And as you guys know, what we spoke about last week, I think the Core Wallet's going to be absolutely huge, and it's a big paradigm shift, transitioning out of the age of basically MetaMask and into a whole new age where we have something which is super specific for the Avalanche network, and I think it's going to be a really big deal. And that video has been incredibly well received. I think it's currently almost to 3,000 views, maybe like 2,750, which is pretty good for 1 week on the Subnet show. So gratitude to everybody who's taken time to watch it. And a lot of people have hit me up personally on Twitter and DMs and email and everything else asking for screenshots or to get a look at it. And I know we're still keeping things a little bit on the DL because we don't want to leak too much alpha just yet because it's not totally available. I myself just got my hands on a build this very week. But we wanted to do a follow-up core sort of session 2 with 2 of the designers of the actual wallet. And then we have a little bit of a demo video we can show here in a second, maybe like 30 or 45 seconds to just give some high level screenshots and stuff like that. But seems like people are incredibly excited about the Core Wallet. So we figured we would just keep the ball rolling this week and come back with a session 2. So this week we are joined by Julia Dwyer and Todd Whatcott. They are the 2 designers of the Core Wallet at Ava Labs. How's it going? Thank you for joining us on the Subnet Show.
Hey guys, yeah, it's great to be here.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So yeah, as I mentioned, you guys are the designers of the Core Wallet, and I know you gave a presentation in Barcelona recently and somehow didn't run into either of you guys, so it's nice to finally connect with you. So I think really what we kind of just wanted to talk about are, you know, what you do at Ava Labs, what it's like to be a designer in the Web3 space, what are some differences between Web2 and Web3, what are some similarities, what are some, you know, design languages you use, pretty much just kind of keep it open. But I think before we kick off the conversation, let me go ahead and just show the little video here to everybody.
Giving the people what they want.
Yeah. I know.
You guys can see this presumably, right?
Could have made him wait to the end.
I know. Shout out to Todd for putting this video together.
Absolutely. Apologies, audio listeners.
Yeah, sorry if the audio is crazy. All right. Yeah, sorry for the audio. If I blasted out your headphone users out there, I apologize. So there you go. That was a little, you know, sneak peek at the Core Wallet, and it looks incredibly cool. And I like how we saw it on the, you know, the laptop screen and on the phone screen. So I guess the first question is, I know Julia just told me she's been at Ava Labs for almost 2 years, which actually surprised me. That's pretty cool. And then Todd was saying he's been here about 6 months. So I guess the first question would be, how long have you been working on the Core Wallet, and when did you first get introduced to the idea?
Yeah, so I would say we've been working closely together since Todd started in about October. We kind of kicked off initiatives a little bit before that, but I was part of the original squad with Nick and Danny. I think Connor, you might have been part of the discussions about kind of this concept of Ava OS. And we started with like very, very rough wireframes there. And I think it was like a team of 4 of us kind of conceptualizing this idea of like the command center for everything and kind of removing the fragmentation and putting it all in one place. So I've seen it kind of the fruition of it from the beginning, which is really, really cool. But now we have something a lot more tangible with Core and the extension and mobile. And that's been my experience with it so far.
Yeah, it's been cool to, it's kind of been something I've worked on since I started here. And it's been cool to kind of see it grow just in the last 6 months, just from where it was when I came on and where we've got it to now and about to kick it out. I'm super excited. It's been a fun thing to work
Come a
on.
long way.
Yeah, it really has.
So is this the
time.
first crypto product that you guys have designed, or have you been in the space, longer than that? Julia, you've been here 2 years. So I know you've been doing a lot of work for us. So I guess how is this compared to other projects that you've worked on before?
Yeah, so for me, it is the first crypto project. I have more of the Web2 background. Previously, I worked on some mobile apps for log me in, like go to connect, go to meeting, Zoom type, VoIP meetings and things like that. And so it's been fun to kind of take those things that I've learned in that Web2 space and kind of bring those in. Things like just kind of design principles that are kind of proven, and to bring those in and just kind of help our users to be able to get through like really complex flows sometimes, just a little bit easier and do things more simply. It's been fun.
Yeah, I think it's been great working alongside Todd, because prior to Todd joining, I was kind of the one holding down the fort. And my product experience has only been with Web3 products. So I think having someone come into the space with a Web2 background was super helpful, because you have a new set of eyes. And yeah, since I've been here, we obviously worked on Bonobo together. Connor, gonna do a subtle drop there. And then the bridge. But yeah, Core has been super exciting. Of all the products, I think it's my favorite one so far.
Cool. So you worked on the bridge as well.
Yes, I did.
Well, that's huge. We just crossed a milestone this week. I'm sure you guys know, but for the viewers,
I saw the hype video. Yes.
yeah, in the past 9 months, 50 billion plus in value has crossed across the bridge. I presume it's in both directions, not just from Ethereum to Avalanche, but that's an insane number. Just as a quick little, side note there, $50 billion is a huge, huge number. What is that? That's like 1/20th of a trillion. Is my math correct there?
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, that's an insane amount of money.
Either way,
it's
yeah,
wild. It's super cool. Apparently Jay's been itching to release the video for like the last 2 months now since they started working on it. But yeah, it was super cool to be a part of that project. And the turnaround time for that project was insane as well. Everyone here is obviously, I think, like power horses, and we just turned that project around really quickly. It was really cool.
Yeah,
I did love that video.
It was so cool.
It was great. It showed like a little Ethereum island, and everybody was kind of like hanging out, and all of a sudden the Golden Gate Bridge got
yeah.
So cool.
Yeah, that was pretty sweet. I just used the bridge recently as well, and the UI is really well. It's amazing. So if you help design it, just massive props, because obviously I work in crypto, so I'm sort of familiar with how it works, but without having to brush up on any docs. I helped write the docs when it first launched like a long time ago, and I haven't touched it since. And just recently I needed to move some stuff back and forth. And without having to really even take any time to come up to speed, I was able to do it in just a couple of minutes. And
that's awesome.
The user experience is super smooth. And now that we're adding Bitcoin support, I think that, $50 billion, that number is going to grow a lot.
Yeah, right.
I think $1 trillion is within view, and that number is absolutely staggering. So yeah, props on that.
No, the bridge was really cool. They got to patent that loading, like the confirmation icon component that we built, which was awesome. And I think we're submitting it to like some other design contests. So it's been a really cool project to see grow.
Got it. Okay, sweet. And then, so regarding the Core wallet, so you said you've been known about it since the beginning, and as we talked about last week, that was the very first thing Nick pitched when he came on board, which was, maybe like a year and 8 months ago or a year and 9 months ago. So it's been working a long time. When did you sort of transition out of just doing like mock-ups and stuff into actually writing the code? And how many people are writing the code? How many people are on your team other than you?
Yeah, so we have the team split out into extension and then mobile. And on ours, I'd say, how many devs do we have? We have like 3 to 4 like front end devs, and then a couple of back end devs. They are great. They work so fast. Sometimes the design gets a little bit behind them because they're moving so quickly. And then maybe talk and speak to the mobile team and the devs on that team.
Yeah, for mobile, there have been 2 so far, and we just added another. These guys are superstars as well, like super fast and super thorough. It's been really fun to get to work with them, and I've actually worked with some of them previously. That's like how I kind of got introduced to Avalanche, so it's been kind of fun to join up with them again and work alongside it again.
And in regards to kind of like wireframes and high fidelity designs, like a lot of the times when we get new feature sets from the PMs, we'll often jump back into it if we have time to go from like a low fidelity to a high fidelity. So sometimes you're never really done with that process, which is cool. But I would say we started jumping into high fidelity, Todd, like around October, November?
I think so, yeah. Like typically, so you kind of want to go through this design process a little bit slower than we have, but yeah, right. It's been crazy. So yeah, I would say October, we were starting to get higher fidelity and like putting together like a full mock-up of the app and things like that, just to kind of get the flows down since then. So yeah.
So I have to say, I was mystified the first time I worked with you, Julia, because I came from the government software world where we were building prototypes for stuff. We didn't have designers, like we didn't deliver working products. I was responsible for designing everything, like picture wise. And if I'm being honest, they were terrible. And to actually, work with somebody who actually had a skill set for this and was very talented, was just like, oh my God, this is so cool. This actually looks good. I'm not used to this. This is making me uncomfortable.
Yeah, no, thank you.
But I guess I'm just curious. So like for people like me who don't get to work with designers regularly, if I'm honest, I still don't get to work with you as much as I would like to.
Right.
But can you just kind of go through like what are the responsibilities of a designer? Like, so you've mentioned like wireframes, like high fidelity, like, so are people coming to you with, I want this to be like this color scheme or like this image or whatever, and then you're just responsible for everything? Or like, do people bring you like sketches on paper and then you take it through to kind of the final image that you see in the video, and then the devs are just kind of like backfilling it? Like what is your job responsibility for this? Like which parts do you do? Which parts do you get extra input on? Stuff like that.
Yeah, Todd, you want to take it away or should
I? Sure, I can. So like our responsibility is to kind of step into a user's shoes, right? And kind of empathize with what they're trying to get done and think through kind of the product that way. So we typically will try, when we can, try to kind of do research as much as we can to understand exactly what they're trying to do, what the problems they're running into. And then we'll kind of define the steps or the functionality that we need from there. And then what we try to do on our team is start really like low fidelity, right? Like it's just like sketching out ideas to solve like a specific problem, and kind of low fidelity, just like sketching as fast as you can. We actually do like a really fun exercise as a group. I talked about it a little bit at the summit, but it's called Design Studio, where we get together as a team, or we invite devs or product or whoever wants to join, and you can either use like an iPad or a piece of paper, and it's kind of a timed thing where you give like 2 minutes to sketch out an idea to solve a problem. And then you move on to the next section. So it's like 4 sections, 2 minutes each. And it's really fun to kind of not think too much through the idea, but just like sketch out as fast as you can. And we've actually come up with some really cool initial concepts that way. And then as a team, we'll kind of decide which ones we like best. We'll vote, and then we'll take those concepts and move them into higher fidelity, where then we'll start kind of like doing some testing with people. We'll like talk to devs or talk to people, whoever we can, to try to kind of validate these like assumptions that we have on these solutions. And then, yeah, once we find something we feel like is pretty solid, we'll take it into like a higher fidelity prototype phase, where we still are trying to continue to test, make sure that it's gonna like solve the problems that the users are running into and really be useful for them. And then it's implemented, and we kind of go through that process all over again. It's kind of a continual cycle, which is really fun, and there's a lot to it, but I really enjoy it. I don't know, Julia, if I missed anything there.
No, I think you nailed it. I think sometimes the PMs and Nick try to hop in and give us sketches because I think everyone wants to convey their idea the best way possible.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a team effort. Everyone's wearing lots of hats, but no, I think Todd, you nailed the answer.
Totally.
What is the most frustrating thing when somebody comes up to you?
Great
like,
question.
They're with ideas. Like, yeah, what are the things that I should not be doing?
Yeah.
I think sometimes thinking like from a very subjective standpoint, thinking like because I think this way, the user is going to think this way can just like be a roadblock to a lot of like creative ideation that you could potentially go through. And it's also super important with what we're doing that we're not actually thinking that we know the answer, and rather that our users probably know the answer best. And so I think anyone that's coming to us with an ask, if they could like think more outside the box in that sense and from different perspectives, that we love that. That's awesome.
Yeah, totally. I would say like the most frustrating thing is like maybe sometimes people don't necessarily understand what UX design is or product design. They might think it's more like a visual designer or like a graphic designer, where it's more like very much visual.
It's pretty.
Yeah, and that's cool, and that is part of it, but there's a lot of data and research and testing that goes into like the design decisions that we make. There's actually, I would say, more on that end of it than the actual visual design.
So what kind of when you say data and experimentation, like how does that process work? Like, is this all internal? Are we like outsourcing this to people on the internet? Like how does that work? What does that mean?
Yeah, I think for us, this process is still pretty young. We're trying to kind of implement this here, but we definitely do have internal research going, where we have like some people on our team, like Anna, and she'll work with us on specific projects. We're trying to have Anna kind of head that research role, and she'll reach out to people in the company. We've recently started a channel on Telegram, actually, for that we're going to plan to start to use, excuse me, we're going to start to talk to actual users there. So we've asked people that like want to join that to reach out to us, and we'll get them added on the Telegram channel.
Yeah. Nick and I have been advocating for obtaining data from our users for a really long time, but obviously given the ethos of the crypto space, anonymity is super important and you don't really want to be tracking people. So it's taken a really long time, I think, to advocate for that effort. And we've just put in like a data analytics platform, and hopefully we'll be able to gather a lot more insights moving forward. And obviously you have to get consent from the user when you're doing stuff like that, but we're trying to find like a nice harmony with research, like methods that aren't typically used probably in the crypto space.
Yeah, something that I've thought of that there's just been a huge opportunity for, and I think this falls in both of your wheelhouse, is one of the, so it kind of leads into one of the questions I was actually had. So one of the great things that like a really profound document I remember reading as I was sort of coming up in the game is the Apple user interface guidelines. I forget exactly what it's called, but it's just so good. You know, if you've ever, I remember reading it right when iOS
the holy
came out.
grail. Yeah.
Yeah, they clearly put so much thought into it, and they've got one back from when the Macintosh came out in the 80s, and you know, when they were switching over OSs when Steve Jobs came back. They've just done such a good job of really, really thinking it out. And I've always thought there's such an opportunity for that same paradigm in the crypto space, from things like how do you display a number with a bunch of zeros? Do you make the first few numbers bold? Do you concatenate them? What do you do? What are the different states of a transaction? It's being processed, it's being rejected, it's being verified. How can you let the user know these different things? And I remember years ago, before I was telling you guys earlier, I was at Bitcoin.com prior to this. I was leading a charge on trying to get that done in the Bitcoin and the BCH space. But I think there's more opportunity in Avalanche, because one of the things about Avalanche is the barrier to entry is relatively high. And I'm sure you guys as designers have had to deal with this so much. There's a lot going on. We've got the multi-chain thing. We've got subnets. We've got cross-chain swaps. We've got bridges, all these different wrapped assets.
We've got it all. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. And so, as somebody who's not crypto native coming into this space, which is the entire world, that's part of our journey, is that we're, turning on the entire world. How do you get these people to understand things in a very sort of intuitive way. So I think there is an opportunity for some type of like crypto user interface guidelines or something to emerge, just planting that seed. But I wanted to kind of piggyback on Connor's previous question regarding your responsibilities or your workflow. What are sort of the tools that you guys use on your day-to-day basis?
Oh yeah, nice. Yeah, so the main tool we use is Figma, and it's just the thing that I love about it is there's so much that you can do there, from like the initial concepts like wireframes all the way through high fidelity to animation, even if we want to show like some micro interactions on like
prototypes.
Yeah, it's actually really cool that way.
Devs can come in and read the code. Like it's for visual designers as well as product designers, but it's a super collaborative tool, and everyone's shifting. Like I think Google just shifted towards it. Everyone's leaving kind of Sketch, which is I think one of the competitors to Figma, and everyone is like teleporting over to Figma now. And yeah, it's a great tool. I love it.
Another tool that we actually use a lot is called Miro. We use it for kind of like brainstorming and those design studios that I talked about. It's a really cool kind of whiteboarding tool. We kind of use it that way.
So then I guess the next part of that question is, I know that when you're dealing with Cocoa and Cocoa Touch, Apple has, a bunch of UI elements and stuff you can kind of just click and drag into their UI builder. And there's something similar to Android. I'm sure it's a lot better than when I played around with it a few years ago. But the Android design interface is different than the iOS design interface. And there's a lot of overlap. If you see a Venn diagram, there's definitely an overlap, but there's also, there's different paradigm and different UI elements. So whenever you're developing something that needs to be on the web, so it presumably has to be in a big screen, and then, on multiple different devices, tablet size, phone size, do you target watches? Do you target big screen? What design language do you use? Do you kind of try and make the iOS look work across everything, or do you use something that's generic enough to match all of them?
This is a super topical question.
It really is. Yeah. I was like, we're talking about this right now. So yeah, when I started at the company, Julia and Anna had a pretty good design system in place. And we've recently decided to kind of overhaul that. And so we've been looking at big design systems and big design guidelines like the human interface guidelines and Google Material on the Android side, and taking pieces from those. We're still pretty early in the process, but we definitely take those into consideration. I feel like if you know how to already like navigate through your iPhone, or if you have an Android device, you're used to these like languages or these design systems. And so if we use those same visual patterns, you're already going to know how to navigate through the app or the wallet without having to kind of really learn too much. So that's something we're definitely taking into account. And
it also helps devs. Like it makes our devs' life a lot easier.
Absolutely.
They have all their storybook components built out. They look at Google Material, for example. And so trying to align those in any way we can will make their lives a lot easier code-wise.
For sure.
Yeah, and so right now you said you had the team broken up into extension and mobile. So it sounds like you're at least targeting a laptop size screen and an iOS screen, but are you also targeting tablet? Are you also targeting watch? What different size screens do you have to actually target?
Yeah, so we'll have the mobile app, which will be like iOS and Android devices. And then the browser extension will live on the web for now. I think it will be responsive, so it should work on tablet. It's not something that we're specifically like targeting a tablet app or targeting a app that's specific to a tablet right now, but it could be something in the future if we find that's kind of like a use case. But
I think also as the team grows as well, like I think we just have limited resources right now and everyone's kind of juggling many things.
Yeah. But yeah, it'll definitely be responsive. So it should work on any screen really that you use.
And I can see real quick, let me finish my thought. And I can see in the context of Core being successful, and I believe it's going to be super successful. So congrats on that. I can see that I can foresee the design that happens in Core growing outwards into the rest of our products. I don't know if I presume you're probably already getting, there's sort of like an overarching design that we have across all of our different assets, but I imagine that Core is going to be its core, right? It's going to be at the core of so many different services that I could see the design languages that you guys choose actually growing out into our other products.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that kind of ties into what's like a very crucial part of product design, which is our design system. And that kind of plays into what you were just talking about with like Material and Apple, like the iOS interface. Establishing a design system that we can use and like plug and play all the components will have a very cohesive experience for our users, which is awesome because I think in the past it hasn't really felt like that. And so trying to move towards that with our design system will be crucial.
So thank you for building it around a dark mode.
Everybody in the crypto space loves dark theme.
Because we're all up 25 hours a day.
That's exactly.
Yeah,
You turn on the screen at 3 a.m. You're like,
I can't do it at 1 in the afternoon. Once your eyes just get used to looking at dark screens, like any white background, just any time of day, just
it's blinding.
Or maybe I need to go to the eye doctor.
It's serious eye bleach. So then let's talk about designing for, I guess before we talk about Avalanche, let's kind of talk about coming from Web 2 to Web 3. So Julia, did you say this is your first? Did you say you've only done Web 3?
I've only experienced product with Web 3 so far.
Interesting. So you came into the industry presumably after only Web 3 was in it. Like, how did that happen? Your very first product was a DApp?
So when I joined Ava Labs, the first 2 months, I actually joined as a visual designer, but I'd been studying on the side with a Berkeley Extension teacher for about 6 months. And so Kevin and Jay both knew when I joined that I wanted to eventually pivot to product. And of course, I think being a startup, when Nick was kind of looking around being like, who can I have to help me design these products? I was like, I'll do it. And then I started building out Bonobo, the bridge, and then building out our team. And then just advocating for needing like an actual established product team in the space. So yeah, this is my first interaction with Web3 and products overall.
Got it. So I know, like, when I kind of pitch people on Web3, I always say, you know, there's a lot of misinformation and there's a lot of cliches out there, but the kind of way I think about Web3 is you're taking everything that Web 2 is and you're kind of turning it on its head. So Web 2 is very centralized, Web 3 is very decentralized. Web 2 is very immutable, it's very mutable, right? You can go and change a website and hit save and automatically redeploy. Web 3 is very immutable, right? When you write a smart contract, it's not so easy to update it. In Web 2, you have these huge oligarchs that own all of your data and know everything about you and have 1 trillion data points on you and know more about you than you even know yourself. Web 3 puts you in complete control of your data. So if you're approaching it from a design perspective, what are some of the commonalities between Web 2 and Web 3, and what are some of the, you know, differences?
Yeah, that's a great question.
So for me, like, having that Web 2 background, I would say, like, as far as design goes, like, bringing a lot of the common patterns that are kind of standard across, whether it's my background's kind of mobile, so there's a lot of like platform standards that are kind of just, that's what you do, right? And so bringing those into Web3, I feel like it's kind of like I was talking about before, like, if you already know how to navigate those Web 2 apps, bringing in those same design patterns as close as you can really help users kind of navigate through these really complex like Web3 flows. So that's something that I'm trying to do.
Like headers, what else would you kind of like?
Yeah, like hierarchy on a page. So like, I know what to look at as a user. Like, I can kind of go down the list or down a screen and kind of see like what's most important.
Color theory.
Yeah, using like red and green typically like represent like success and maybe like a destructive action or like an error, right? Using things like that people are used to, I think it goes a long ways.
Notifications, transparency. I think like crypto is a little bit like the Wild West, and so a lot of the times, I think Connor, on the first project we were working on, I was trying to talk about accessibility with people because that's a huge part of Web 2 design. There's like massive lawsuits around it if you're not following AA standards, and I was trying to fend and like fight for those those like accessibility rules. And it's just the Wild West in crypto, and people just aren't as worried about it. So I think it's kind of like Todd and I's job to bring those through as much as possible. And I think it's because a lot of these things in Web3 are dev designed sometimes. And so actual product design principles sometimes aren't followed just due to probably lack of resources. And so bringing those through like accessibility, color theory, everything that Todd already mentioned is just really important.
think it was the PNG token logo that was the
I'm so
sticky
glad you remember, because I was thinking about it today. I was like, it was the orange. It was the orange.
Just that orange was not like
It wasn't
disability
accessible, and I was
accessible
trying to
enough.
fight so hard, and everyone was like, it's crypto. Like
you can't, but like the thing, you can't change somebody else's brand. Like,
No,
if that's the Penguin brand. Like
It was a
like if
difficult
Coca-Cola
position.
Red wasn't compliant, we can't change Coca-Cola Red to be maroon, you know?
No,
That's true.
yeah, it was a difficult situation.
But
for
I
sure.
do think those standards and conventions will emerge. So coming from the technical perspective, whenever I was in college, I was part of the HTML5 working group. So I worked on HTML5. That was kind of the first big thing I worked on right out of school. And so I got a great appreciation for standards and interoperability during that time in my career. And I just really had an appreciation of how the modern standards, which have emerged from the W3C and, ECMA standards group and all the different standards groups, have really led to the modern web. And the modern web is just so much better than the old web, where you had Netscape and Internet Explorer, and there was you had to reverse engineer things on both sides of the wall. And now we've got a standard, you implement the standard, and it works pretty well across all the different browsers. There might be some weird edge cases, but it's pretty darn good. And so for years, I have envisioned, and I think it's going to happen, some type of standards body that will emerge in the blockchain space. Just because interoperability is critical. And I've always said that I believe the blockchain has the potential to be as transformative as the web. And I really do believe that, or I wouldn't work in this industry as hard as I do every day. But one of the things we don't quite have is standards bodies. We have conventions like the Bitcoin improvement proposal or the Ethereum improvement proposal. We have those kinds of things, and they are ad hoc conventions and they work as standards, but there's nothing that's very formal. And part of the problem is that we haven't really had the thought leadership to kind of push them through, which Tim Berners-Lee was able to do because he created the web. So when he created the W3C, he had that clout to kind of be like, hey, this is what we want to do. And then he got all the browser vendors on board. And we've not had that yet. Satoshi obviously dipped out early. We have people like Vitalik, and he's obviously a champion. We have people like Goon and all of our C-level suite. I still think we're incredibly early, even though we're 10 or 11 or 12 years into the blockchain journey. This is very, very, very early. Our work's going to have resonance in 50 years from now, 100 years from now. So we're so super early. So I really do believe that there will be standards which emerge. So when you're talking about accessibility, it's absolutely huge in the Web2 space. There's no question about it. When you think about how many people out there access the web who have some type of accessibility issue, we need to bring that same awareness to Web3. So that's pretty cool to hear. With regards to, let's talk about Avalanche a little bit. So as I mentioned earlier, there's no question about it that the barrier to entry into the Avalanche tech ecosystem is relatively steep. We got a lot going on. You've heard the Arthur C. Clarke phrase, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And it's kind of like that in the Avalanche ecosystem, man. Once you get your chops down, it's like you got some magic powers. But I imagine that it's challenging designing for that, because it's just like when you're designing the Web2 thing. When you've got a big screen, you can have a bunch of different UI elements and a bunch of different actions. But as you sort of collapse down the screen size, you've got to figure out what are we ditching, what is not important enough to make it to the next level. So how has it been designing for Avalanche, and what have been, the most challenging things you guys have tripped up on?
Great question. Yeah, for me, I would say just that learning curve, like coming from Web2 and like we talked about kind of in Barcelona, like it's kind of like a different language. Like you're learning all of these new like terms and things like that. So picking that up has been a big challenge for me. And I think it is for users that are new to like the space, right? So kind of simplifying that terminology, I think, is really important. I don't know, Julia, if you have anything.
Yeah, for sure. I would say, well, we're trying to find, obviously, I think with core especially, we're trying to lean more towards mass adoption. Like you just said, it's a steep curve to get into the products. And we're trying, obviously, to make mass adoption more of a thing. And so I think simplifying the user experience has been pretty hard. You're dealing sometimes, we have like two edges of the sword where you want the new user, but we also have power users. So we can't alienate the people that are already there. And so we have to simplify technical jargon, like Todd was just saying. We have to simplify like information on the screen, but we also are dealing with a lot of addresses. And so it's different from Web2 in that sense. And so I think trying to simplify the experience, trying to be transparent with our users by providing snack bar notifications, letting them know where they are in the experience. I think that's super important, not only for power users, but also for people entering into the space that are super used to things like Venmo, Chase, like your banking apps that show you every part of the process, and you don't have to wait a while. And if you do, you know what's going on at every moment of the process. And so I think things like that. And then, Yeah, I would say just trying to simplify the experience overall is pretty important.
Yeah, something that came to mind a second ago. Have either of you guys ever developed any, I know Todd, you said this is your first Web3 project, and I don't know if you did or not, Julie. Have you guys designed anything for like Ethereum or Bitcoin or anything like that?
Aside from the stuff that's internal to our core product, I have not.
Yeah, the reason I mentioned it is simply that, and I don't think we have to deal with it in our space because we have this sub-second immutable reversible finality, but when you're dealing with Ethereum and you click submit or something, it takes 15 to 30 seconds for a block. So what do you do? You throw up a spinner or something. It's such a bad user experience. So many times back in the day when I was developing Ethereum front-end dApps, it was just like, this is absolutely horrible. How do you deal with callbacks? So I presume that's not such a bad experience in our world, right? Because as soon as you click submit, you've got a block. Because that's one of the things we were talking about with Nick. Whenever you're dealing with MetaMask, even though the transaction may have settled on the back end, you still have to wait 5 or 7 seconds or something for the UI to refresh. So that's one of the things I think is going to be a big driver of adoption of Core, is simply that we're building it to take this sub-second finality into, or I should say you guys are building it to take this sub-second finality into account, correct?
Yeah, I agree. And I think we even started honestly with that previous to Core, like I was saying with the bridge loading confirmation component. The user knows every bit of the confirmation that's happening. They have like an interactive component that they can look at. And with the bridge that's going to be in Core, you can hide it and you can go and interact with the rest of the application, which is awesome because you're not stuck in this space on the extension, especially given that it's such a small screen that you're working with. So the fact that a user knows what's going on, then come back and look at it. And then we're also putting like badges on the activity to show them how many transactions are pending during the bridge process. I think that is huge to keep the user interacting with the project, the product.
Yeah, I think the goal there is just to kind of clarify kind of like what's happening. So it's not just sitting there. The user thinks it's broken, or if you're sending a lot of money, that's really kind of scary, right? Like you don't know where it's at. And so kind of clarifying it and letting them know exactly what's happening to the point that we can is super important. So yeah, I think that's something that's kind of cool that we're doing.
This is a little bit of an aside, but I was doing some listening to a podcast about layer 2s recently and roll-ups. And I was just thinking, a lot of people ask us to kind of compare layer 2s to Avalanche. And one of the things that I think Avalanche does very well, and once you've used Avalanche and get used to it, I'm not sure you're going to move away from it, is this instant finality. And the whole idea of doing roll-ups is essentially batching transactions together. So instead of your finality being a couple seconds, your finality is probably a few hours. And I'm not sure, like, they might say that like, oh, you're settled in our like centralized system that we use to batch orders. But before that, but until that makes it on chain, your order isn't really settled. And I think it's just one of the huge advantages Avalanche has over anybody else is the fast finality. And I think just after years of developing on Bitcoin, after years of developing on Ethereum, it's just such a game changer for the user experience that you can't put, like, anybody would trade for that property. Like there's like no amount of money that like people wouldn't be able to pay to get that into their system. And we're so lucky to have that.
Agreed.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's why I say that that Avalanche really represents a coming of age moment for the blockchain, akin to the Web 2 moment of the web. So I've said this before, but let me just recap. So when the web came out in the 90s, people knew that it was, academics, computer scientists, hackers, these people knew that the web had the potential to change everything. And so a bunch of money rushed in and we had the dot-com era. People started playing around with the web in the late 90s and they realized, I just don't think this is ready. It's just not as good as a native Windows or Mac app. And the bubble popped in the early 2000s and a bunch of money rushed out. People who saw the vision continued working. Around 2004, 2005, we had the emergence of Ajax and modern web standards with ECMAScript and JavaScript and CSS and HTML5 and all these different standards. And then the web really had a coming of age moment where it really did fulfill its promise and change everybody's life in a radical way. And today we live in a web-centric world. And I first got into Bitcoin in 2011. So I went through all the Bitcoin era. I went through all the Ethereum era. I went through many of the different Bitcoin forks. I was a big proponent of Bitcoin Cash for a while. I had a Bitcoin Cash startup. And when I saw Kevin and Goon give a presentation on Avalanche in 2018 in Milan, I immediately understood like this is the thing we've been waiting on. This Avalanche consensus with thousands of TPS and this instant finality allows the blockchain to really have this coming of age moment where it can fulfill its promise and start to really, really transform the world like the web. And so I agree, this sub-second finality is a game changer. Just recently I had to use Ethereum and I haven't used it in months, and just the 15-second block time feels glacier compared to what we have. If you roll it into the Bitcoin ecosystem where you have to wait some number of confirmations, 10 minutes of pop, 6 in theory an hour, it's obviously not scalable. So,
and that's if you pay high gas.
Yeah, true.
If you pay low or medium gas, you just end up refreshing Etherscan being like, okay, my transaction's likely to be mined in the next couple hours. Okay. All right.
No, I think it's great about our bridging component. I mean, obviously we built it so that you can see how long it takes on either sides of the network. But I think it's great that when it hits Avalanche, you don't even have time to see it go from start to finish because it's so fast, which is awesome. I love that part of it.
So then regarding, I guess, next steps on for your teams, what does the rollout look like? And then are you guys hiring? Are you trying to find amazing people? Do you want to send out a message to try and rally some troops?
Yeah, we just added a rock star to the team. We're super excited. We're now a team of 5. So we have 3 seniors and then 2 kind of more juniors. And I'm really excited to see how the team evolves with the new addition. I think it's going to be great. He built actually his own product. I don't remember if it was 2 years ago, but it's a Web3 product. So he's super familiar with the space. And I think he's going to be just a great addition. And right now we're not looking to hire. I think down the line, probably if we could build out research, that would be great for the team. But right now, I think we've kind of paused on hiring. We're just trying to integrate the new member to the team and then work through that.
I think that totally could change too, like depending on how things go. Like things change so fast. So yeah, I think people that are like amazing rock stars, like we're always like open to talking to for sure. Like because you never know, like could be next week that, hey, we need somebody else, so absolutely. Like if there are people that are interested or want to talk, like even just for kind of getting to know people in the space, I think that would be awesome. Yeah.
And how about for the rollout of the product? What does that look like?
That's a little TBD. We have some shifting dates, some things, we're trying to integrate multi-chain right now. So there's a couple of things that are kind of shifting a little bit. So it's hard to say what the final date will be. I would say it's still a little TBD.
Yeah, I think so. I think it'll be the browser extension will go out, and then mobile will lag just a couple weeks behind that. So
yeah, 1 to 2 weeks.
Yeah, it shouldn't be too much longer. But yeah, we'll have to talk to Nick to get specific stuff there, I think.
Yeah, I think we're just trying to make sure that the product
we're just hunting for that alpha.
What?
We gotta find ways to enrich the quality of the subnet show. And so instead of improving the anything that we can bring, we're just gonna try to strip mine our guests for any extra information.
Details, I know, right?
Got it. And what else is on the horizon for you guys after this? Is there anything else you guys can leak, or is everything on the DL, or are you just totally focused on this?
I think extension and mobile are the most important thing. Everybody's had their eyes on that. And then I think we're just going to try to focus on core web and just core as a product. I think most of the designers on the team will probably be focusing on that after extension and mobile go out. And now we can kind of build that like empire, because it's going to be huge.
I think we're shifting a little bit as a company, and we had a tendency to ship things and move on to the next thing right away because there was just so much to do. But I think we're trying to be much better now about actually supporting things once they go out and giving them like appropriate resources, which seems a little bit self-evident, but I know,
right? Sometimes not so much, but yeah.
I think, and then also our design system is going to need like some love, and that's something we're working pretty hard to kind of plan and figure out around while we're working on core. Just because as the team grows in the future and as things grow, having that design language in place is going to make things so much easier for us, for devs, for people coming on. So it's going to be really important to kind of have that nailed down. So that's a big one.
We'll be able to scale as a team just like much more quickly, because designers will be able to come in and just plug and play with everything, and it'll be like our entire language behind all the products.
Right. For sure.
Okay, sweet. Well, thanks you guys for joining us. I think that covers my questions. You guys, we'll pass the mic around one last time. You guys want to give a shout out to anybody from your team, or if you want to share any social channels, how people can follow you guys? You want to start, Julia?
Yeah, sure. I mean, honestly, shout out to Mac, the PM on our team, and Nick as well. I think Mac took like 1 week off in August, and I think everybody almost died without him. So shout out to him for corralling the madness, and then also just Nick for the ideas behind all of it. I love the team we work with. I'm super proud to be a part of everything that we're doing. So yeah. And then Twitter handle is at Dwyer, JUJUDWY. Lots of cool stuff on there.
Todd?
Nice. Yeah, I would just like shout out the rest of our team. So we have Anna, Reed, and Christian. I really enjoy working with this team. Like, I feel like that's a big, like, positive part of working at Ava Labs. So love those guys. And then, yeah, like on social, like if you want to see pictures of my kids and stuff, like you can follow me on Instagram, but I need to step up my social game for sure. So there's not too much there.
Connor?
You're not like me hounding Twitter.
10,000. Connor's got fangirls.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, if you'd like my autograph, just
Yeah.
send,
Did you get any autographs in Barcelona? Did people ask for any?
No autographs, but a bunch of pictures actually.
Yeah.
But
Awesome.
if you just want to, I'll send you my Venmo, and for a small fee of $1,000, I will send you a signed picture.
Small fee.
Love it.
Actually, why am I Venmoing? Just send me some Ava.
I know. I was gonna say
there you go.
Starbucks.
It's a discount.
Nice.
Where can they
But
find you,
anyway,
Connor?
if you're satisfied with just my words and not my not my likeness, you can follow me on Twitter at DAS_Connor, DAS_CONNOR.
Awesome. And I'm Gabriel Cardona. You can follow me on Twitter at CG Cardona. That's my last name, Cardona. That's my initials, CG Cardona. And lots going on the developer relations team. We are hosting a hackathon this weekend at Cornell. And then I will be flying out to Berlin in the middle of next month. We're taking over the Tempelhof airspace in Berlin, and we're going to have a whole section there. We're going to be there for the Formula E race. We're going to have a hacker house where we're going to be giving presentations and having people set up and hack with us. I'll be there with Aaron, who's the guy who created Core ETH and has been doing the stateful precompile work with Connor. And then we also have Connor, I forget his last name, Chevley. I might have mispronounced it, but he's one of our front end guys as well. So I'm really looking forward to that. If you have a chance, go check out avalanche.house. And if you're in Europe or Berlin, I encourage you to check it out because it's going to be very much in the same vein as Lisbon and Barcelona. I've seen the floor layout. I've seen the event planning. It's like phase 3, and both of those were so absolutely amazing that I just don't see this one also being, the next big amazing thing. So if you have the chance to make it, please come out and hack on some Avalanche with me. So I think that's it. Thank you guys so much. It's really an honor to work with you guys. Todd just said he really likes working with this team. I do as well. This is the best team I've ever worked on. I really, really believe that this is a special time and place. I always remind myself as often as possible to take a mental snapshot of this time and place and bottle it up and stick it away so that I can remember in the future what this feels like. We're just really successful and we're very fortunate and we're firing on all cylinders. So mad props to everybody on the call right now for all of your work. So I think that's it. We have a really great guest next week. We're going to have John Nahas, which is from our BD team. I don't know if he's the head of BD, but he's one of our main business development guys and has been around at Ava Labs for as long as I have and has been spearheading most of the cool stuff we have going on. So I think that's it. Thank you, everybody. We'll be back next week. So signing out as always from Snowflake to Avalanche and through consensus to the stars. Peace, y'all.